You're not going to be sitting across from people that are like, here's my checkbook. Yes, I'm pre-qualified. Like, it's not like that.
If you've ever sat across from a full arch patient and watched them walk out the door without saying yes, today's episode is for you. My guest has built a career around one very specific problem. The national average for full arch case acceptance sits at 20%. She looked at that number and decided it was unacceptable, and then went out and achieved a 75% closing rate to prove it didn't have to be that way. She helped build the largest single-owned implant center in the country, $8 million a year, 40 to 50 arches a month out of one single location. And she did it not as a clinician, but as a closer. Her background is pure sales and communication, which is exactly what makes her perspective so valuable for this show. She's now the founder of Full Arch Sales Experts, and she's on a mission to help every full arch practice stop leaving cases and patients on the table. Stacy, welcome to the Full Arch Growth Show.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in here. I have a pretty hard-hitting question to open this up. What do you believe is the most destructive thing that you see dental teams do in a consultation, and the thing they probably don't even realize is killing the case?
My gosh, that's such a loaded question. Well, it's really interesting, Chelsea, because just like you said, with my background, I started in sales. I started selling cases, right? So I did that for 8 years straight. And then I had to shift and I had to teach teams how to sell, which was much different, right? And, it's really interesting because I learned a lot of, since starting my company last February, it'd be 2025, right? So I've had it over a year now. Basically, I thought when I first started doing this, when I was selling cases, I thought you need this really great salesperson. That's what everyone needs. And it was interesting because, Chelsea, I don't know if you know, but I kind of built a name for myself in the full arch field just because what happened was when I was at my old practice, all these implant companies saw what we were doing. So I started doing speaking events and things like that. And that's how I was able to, take a leap of faith and start my company. But when I first started, like, Stacy, maybe you're just an outlier. Maybe you're just really good in sales. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to transfer the skill set. And what we've seen since starting my company over this past year has been incredible. To answer your question, I'd say the biggest thing that every practice that I look at doesn't have is they don't have a sales process. Like they all do the same thing. And, this is kind of, like I said, a loaded question. Everyone is using training that they've gotten from either like systems that were built from multi-million-dollar marketing spends. Like a lot of these people that are now full arch trainers come from ClearChoice. Well, ClearChoice is a system that was used to close cases when you have 10 patients a day. Like not every office has that, right? It's much different. So, my practice wasn't like that. We did, sold 50 arches a month for 8 years straight, seeing 1 to 2 patients a day, 1 to 3 patients a day. I didn't have 10 patients to choose from. So it's much different. So I just think I could talk about this for 10 hours, but they don't have a sales framework. And I just think, honestly, Chelsea, the entire industry is missing the mark in terms of the new patient journey, who should be doing what, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I feel like often you probably come in where practices already done probably several marketing companies. They've probably already maybe even hired folks to help them on the sales side. I feel like usually you're coming in to practices that are somewhat more experienced. Now, how do you identify when you come in there, whether they have a sales problem, a marketing problem, or both? What is the first thing that you do? Because a lot of these folks do believe they have a marketing problem, and sometimes maybe they do. But how do you identify whether it is a sales or marketing problem?
It's never a marketing problem. I swear, as long as you're using a reputable company like the Implant Engine, right? And people that know the full arch space, it's not usually a marketing problem. I mean, so to answer your question, it's usually a marketing company if you're using just like a company that only uses Meta or someone that's never done full arch and they don't use Go High Level to move the lead through a pipeline, right? They don't know. They just basically email the practice, like the lead one time and they call them and it's gone, So that's usually, but it's very easy to determine the KPIs. It's easy to see where you're falling short. And here's the problem. The problem is not what is the problem. The problem is all these practices they have the wrong perspective of what marketing should look like, right? So marketing, I think we've talked about this before, marketing brings a practice opportunity, attracts the lead to the practice, and then it's up to the practice, right? Or unless you have a marketing company such as you guys that has a really great call center, but it's up to the lead call then to basically ensure that a viable lead gets in the chair. The problem is all these doctors think if they keep switching marketing companies, they're just going to they're like, we need more qualified patients. We need better leads. Like listen, I did this for 8 years. You're not going to be sitting across from people that are like, here's my checkbook. Yes, I'm pre-qualified. It's not like that. But what I'm trying to say is 8 out of 10 times when people say they can't afford it, they aren't understanding the value. They don't see the value of the outcome outweighing the cost of the procedure. That's the problem. So what I mean is most of these practices don't even have a sales process, right? But you can easily determine, I'll just sum this up for you. So if there's no form fills or calls, you have a marketing problem. If there's patients booking but not showing up, you have a problem with the call center, with the lead call. And if there's patients showing up and not closing, you have a problem with operations and sales. It's basically, it boils down to that. But I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times, it's a sales problem.
Yeah. So talking about, you keep harping back on sales process. What, in your opinion, high level, what indicates someone has a good sales process?
Well, no one really has a sales process. So right now, a lot of people are using, have you heard of the 10-10-10 framework?
From Progressive.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
That, from my opinion, no disrespect, Progressive, but we changed that first thing because 10-10-10 is you spend 10 minutes with the TC, then the doctor pops in for 10 minutes and then 10 minutes. So I watch what they're doing, right? Coaching, we use AI software, so we see everything's very transparent. There's so much psychology behind this that what happened is back in the day when, because I think Progressive got this whole thing from Clear Choice, and all these coaches now from Clear Choice are using the same framework where it's like the TC's there first, then the doctor pops in when he gets a minute, and then the TC closes the case or whatever. And it's usually like this: build rapport, doctor comes in, diagnoses, and tries to sell the case. And then TC just goes over the numbers. That's it. And does the financing. That to me is a broken system on so many levels. And I'll tell you why. My dad's a retired dentist. That's how I got into dentistry. And it's really interesting. He didn't have some amazing sales person. He just had his office manager giving a treatment plan. All they had was care credit, right? But he was doing big cases back then. And he thought, you know what? Instead of going over this at the front desk, what I'll do is we'll take the patient back into my office in front of a big oak table. I'll talk to the patient so they're not so nervous in the chair. I'll talk to them in my office. And what he thought was actually doing him well actually ended up shooting him in the foot. Because what he realized is that when a patient comes to a dental practice and is expecting to speak to a dentist, they feel comfortable sitting in a chair. So a dentist talking to a patient at a table or in an office, you're taking them out of their comfort zone. They're thinking to themselves, something's not right here. Think about it. If you went to a practice and you sat in a chair and a doctor came over and talked to you, wouldn't you feel comfortable? Like sitting in the operatory. Now say you need a bunch of dental work and he puts you into this office and starts trying to diagnose while you're sitting on a couch. It's just weird. And so, first of all, everything is completely overplayed. You don't need to do that. You don't need to build rapport before. The TC should not be meeting with the patient until after there's a diagnosis. So my framework basically it's just like a regular general practice exam, where basically the assistant gets the patient, takes a CT scan, puts them in the chair, doctor goes in first, right? Builds rapport, gains trust, does an oral cancer screening, looks in the mouth. Half the time these guys don't even look in the mouth, and basically goes over the options from a very non-biased, not like, yes, you should definitely do it all on X, because I think we talked about this, why it's a conflict of interest for the doctor to try to sell the case. Because these cases cost so much money, we know this is a fact that research proves that people are less likely to trust advice when they think the advisor stands to benefit financially. They're less likely to trust that person. So in other words, the patient's always going to see the doctor as the owner of the practice. These cases are $50,000. So the patient's sitting there looking up at the doctor thinking, I'd probably like to do this case, but I'm really not interested in buying him a Porsche. It's too much money. So that's why it's so much. I mean, listen, my dad could sell snow to an Eskimo, and we tried it. He tried to sell the cases himself and converted it 30. And then he brought me in, and I, other than the business owner, sold the cases. And guess what? 70% for 8 years straight. The proof is in the pudding. So if you have someone else other than the business owner advising the patient on what's best for them, they're more likely to trust that person, even if the doctor has good intent.
Now, this is really interesting because this is the opposite of what
everyone says.
Everyone is teaching. Number one, your advice is take them to the chair. You take them right to the chair and do a proper dental exam where they feel like they're getting a dental experience. Nothing feels off or corporate or strange to them. And then your recommendation is that the TC meets with them for the first time after.
In a consult room.
The doctor doesn't actually talk money, just recommends a treatment. He goes back and talks money, and that will increase your close rate significantly.
And doesn't just talk money. So my framework, there's 5 steps that you need to do prior to getting to money. Forget about that. No one even does that. So there's steps you have to take it, just like in any sales process. You have to find the problem. You have to talk about the unique selling proposition. You have to ask questions to overcome objections. You have to make the patient understand what our true products really are. We're not selling teeth, right? So all these things come into play. So, but yeah, the doctor never, because of what I mean, it's really straightforward. That sentence, research proves that people are less likely to trust advice from someone when they think the advisor stands to benefit financially.
Very interesting. I absolutely love that. We've been kind of harping on value creation. I want to go back to that because I want to we don't have to spend a lot of time here, but what are simple things the treatment coordinator can do to help people understand the value of this procedure?
Yes. So first and foremost, when you say the value of the procedure, naturally, and this is what I see all the time when I take on new clients on my retainer program, you see the TCs building value in the all on X. Naturally, you think that's what you do. Well, you have to understand human behavior. So people think logically, they buy with emotions. You can't. Have you ever heard sell the sizzle, not the steak? You can't go trying to build value in the all in X. What you have to be selling is the outcome. It's really interesting. I saw this thing and I show it in a lot of my trainings and courses that I do and stuff. It's Brian Tracy. You know Brian Tracy. He's really great. He talks about people don't care about you. People don't care who you are. People don't even care about your product. The only thing that people care about is what will your product or service do for me? So you have to build value in the outcome. And the way that you do that is you make people understand what our true products really are. So what are our true products? I've narrowed it down to 4 things. We provide comfort, function, health, and confidence. But it's really interesting because when you just say it like that, it's like, oh yeah, we make people comfortable. It's what these TCs need to understand, because this isn't like selling a shirt where someone can go touch it and feel it and see what it feels like on. You have to sell something that's not there. So you have to paint a picture in someone's mind. You have to make them understand that wearing a lower denture is miserable. We know that 9 out of 10 people can't even keep it in the mouth. It's so painful and miserable. But when you're talking about comfort, that's where you literally have to tell people you're investing in your comfort. And it's not just once a week or even once a day. You're investing in your comfort every second of every day for the rest of your life. Your comfort. You have the choice. You can be comfortable or you can be miserable. It's more about getting them to talk about their own problems too. So it's like, share with me what's going on. How is that impacting your life? Picture yourself with perfect teeth. What will you be most excited about? How will your life change? Getting them to talk about it. Because I could tell people all day long, but until they believe it, that's when people take action. And the health is crazy because people will be sitting in the office, and in the sales presentation, we don't use the CT because on the pano, you can really see like infection. With the pano, it's like you can see like the infection, and someone will be sitting there with literally hole the size of a quarter in their mandible in the lower jaw, and they're like, I'm fine, my doctor just gave me. Another thing is showing the cost of inaction. Like, you're not fine, this can literally be fatal. What you have right now is not just sitting in your mouth, it's going to your heart, to your lungs. When you have infection on the top, it's going to your brain. Like, if you needed a knee replacement right now, you wouldn't even be able to get one. And then I would say to the patients, the crazy thing is if this infection in your mouth that you can't feel because the tooth has a root canal, if it were on your arm, you would be in the ER, but you can't see it or feel it. This is festering throughout your body. Like, I always tell my teams that I work with, Google tooth abscess and how it correlates with systemic health. The first thing it says is like, can be fatal, but these people don't realize, right? And even doctors don't do a great job of making people understand how bad off they really are. I used to say to people, listen, this isn't even about your teeth anymore. This is about your health. We got to do something. We have to do something to get your mouth healthy.
I want to just kind of sum up here and recap. One, outlining the future outcome being about them and their future health, and making sure that they really admit to themselves how unhappy this is making them on a daily basis, and hearing them say that out loud to themselves. And the other thing is being really good at outlining the cost of inaction and being really direct with them about how this is impacting their body. Using things like, if this were an infection on your arm, you would be in the ER, and helping them relate it to other ways in which they may seek treatment. Just because they can't see it doesn't mean it's not impacting their bodies.
I mean, people have no idea chewing properly is literally how your body fights disease. It's how your body fights disease. So when you make someone understand, you either chew properly or you'll get sick. They're sitting there in the office with no posterior teeth. They're like, I'm fine. You're not fine. You have to do something. You're going to get sick if you stay like this. You have to be able to chew. We're not rabbits. We can't chew with our front teeth. You need molars. So thank God technology has given us a product to basically give you your teeth back. It's incredible what we get to provide for people.
So this comes up all the time with my clients. They always ask me, what should I be priced at? In your opinion, from a sales standpoint, let's take someone who's in the Los Angeles area or Chicago or Houston, Texas, or New York, some of these more competitive areas. Does price actually matter? And how should doctors be thinking about pricing their product from a sales standpoint?
Yes, that's a great question. So it depends on your area. You need to be competitive. And what I would say to every doctor listening in is call Clear Choice and find out what they are priced at in your market, because you have to be competitive with them. I have a client in Hawaii. They're pricing at like $27K an arch. I know people down here in San Diego now are selling arches for like $18,000. You do not need to cut price to sell full arch cases. I don't care how many people are around you. If you understand this sales side of it, you could sell cases all day long. If someone can afford 15, they can afford 25. Trust me. It's just the reason that most people aren't buying. Here's something interesting of buying behavior is based on the past. 85% of buying behavior is based upon the anticipated future. And that's why it's so important. As long as not the doctor, but your TC can make the patient understand how much of an impact this is going to have on someone's life. Listen, $25,000 an arch? Are you kidding me? There's ways to, you don't just go into price. You basically ask questions to determine if the patient has a general idea how much these cases cost. And then that way you can say, okay, I need to put things into perspective more, make them understand what they're truly investing in. I teach one of our questions to overcome objections, like early in the conversation it's not even necessarily have you been to any other practices? It's just, do you have a general idea how much all on X cases cost? If they say, yes, I was just at Nuvia, you're in good shape. They know it's an investment, right? They're willing to spend the money. There's other things you have to do because now you have to worry about them settling with Nuvia. So you have to use your unique selling proposition to make them understand why your practice is the best for them. But if they say, no, I have no idea, you got some work to do.
They say, no, I have no idea. Or they say, Couple $1,000. What does that look like?
Before you get to price, you better get them thinking this is going to be 50 grand without saying it, because the last thing you want to do is put down a treatment plan and they're thinking it's going to be $2,000. You'll never sell the case. Never. So you have to start talking about our true products. I literally had a patient, I asked him that question when I was selling a case. I go, Ron, do you have a general idea? I just want to make sure you understand about what you'll be investing in, so I don't give you a heart attack like we were joking around. He's like, listen, Stace, I'm going to tell you this. I'm thinking this is going to be about the price of a really nice new car. He goes, I can live without my car. I need my mouth to work. So he told me that story. And I used to tell it all the time. I go, oh my gosh, it's so interesting. I just had a patient in here last week. I asked him the same thing. You know what he said? So when you're doing storytelling and it's coming from someone else in their situation, it lands really nicely.
You would say, someone else said that to me the other day. He said, and you would actually tell that story.
That's what makes people feel comfortable. We talk about in portions of my training, mimicry, right? Basically, if you have someone that walks into a consult and they're like a teacher and they're very pristine, sitting straight up in their chair, you should sit up in your chair, right? Mm-hmm. If you have someone that walks in, maybe he's like a construction worker, then I always say throw an F-bomb, whatever, get on their level. People feel more comfortable when they're in similar situations. That's what makes people feel comfortable. It's called mimicry. But yeah, storytelling is very, very effective.
Really interesting. Now let's talk about the hiring side. A doctor is looking to hire a treatment coordinator, or maybe they already have someone in their office that they think is a good fit. How do they know if they're a good fit for the job?
Well, they should be tracking, right? So they're probably converting at about 20 to 25, like every other treatment coordinator. For me, how do I know when I'm able to help a practice? My company has taken multiple practices. And remember how I told you at first, I thought you needed this all-star, rock star salesperson? Not the case. We've taken companies that are using the same marketing, same TC for months and gone from 2 arches to 14 arches in 6 weeks, multiple times, and kept it at that number with someone that's not had any sales experience or anything. So I'll answer your questions. The 2 things I want if they were going to come to me for training are someone intelligent, someone that's hungry for growth, and someone I would say that's loyal.
What you didn't say there is nice with patients. I get that a lot. Doctors will tell me, well, she's great with patients, but struggles to talk about money. I noticed when you said those 3 characteristics you look for in a good salesperson, none of that was niceness or relatability to the patients. Now, is that important, and where would you grade that?
You do have to be able to build rapport and connect with the patient, but I feel having systems and having a framework is much more important, right? Like asking the right questions and following a sales process. But yeah, you have to be able to get the patient to trust you. And the way that you do that, it's more about product knowledge. People buy from people they like, right? So they have to be likable, but they don't have to be the most personable person in your practice. I have people that I'm working with right now that are crushing it, that are, not the most personable. They're likable. Yeah, you can't have someone that's like a total bitch, but that's definitely not the most important characteristic, I would say.
If someone just kind of getting into full arch and they're looking around their office trying to identify whether they have someone in the office that could do this or not, what are the things that they're maybe not thinking about when they're identifying someone they want for the role? How would you decide whether you have someone in the office that you should put into this, or if you should go out and hire? What would you be looking for?
Yeah, I would have someone that's a people person. That is important, but I would go back to those 3 things, or at least the 2. Are they hungry? Coachable is huge. Egos at the door. With these companies that we're getting such great results with, it's because the TCs, they love it. They want more. They soak it up like a sponge. And they've been there for 25 years. They've been through all the TCI training and stuff. Coach someone that's coachable, personable, intelligent, and hungry. That's what I would look for.
I think what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times doctors are deciding who they want, whereas what you're saying is this person has to really want this, want to be coached, hungry for a different role, and it's not enough for the doctor to want it for them.
Yes, they have to be hungry for growth. They have to want to grow. Sales is the type of thing they have to be able to kind of get kicked in the face and get right back up. They have to be strong enough to be able to handle rejection, but soft enough to not piss people off. So you really want that balance, because I've studied this type of prospect, this full arch, highly emotional business to consumer prospect. I've studied it for the last 25 years. Prior to working in dental, I worked for a company that invested millions of dollars learning about this highly emotional business to consumer transaction driven from direct to consumer marketing efforts. And you have to have that balance of assertiveness and hand holding. So yeah, you just have to have someone that's fierce, but also soft too. Doesn't piss people off, if you know what I mean.
Even the best salesperson is going to get rejected once or twice a day, either within the conversation or in general with that particular lead. So speaking of hiring a salesperson or identifying someone from within and making sure they're hungry, what makes salespeople hungry is a good commission structure a lot of times. So talk to me about how you think about sales comp. How do you pay? What is your recommended pay structure for a good treatment coordinator?
It's different in a lot of practices because it's not like a one size fits all, but I would say the average pay is somewhere around 60K base for bigger implant centers and things like that. You could do it a couple different ways. Just remember, docs, you can always give more money. You can't take money away from someone. So you'd want to be very careful about this. What I would say is the commission range is anywhere from like 0.5 to 3 of total sales. But also there's a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself where you have a break even point. So say you do a 60K base and your break even point is 100, and anything over that he or she sells, they get 1.5 or something like that. That's what I would say it is. I think that baseline is really important depending on a lot of different things. I'd be happy to help any of the listeners if they want help with that. It's not a one size fits all. It depends on collections and overhead and all that stuff too. One of the really, really good points is you can always give more. You can't go back unless you're prepared to lose that person. You can't take money from an employee.
So wrapping up the sales, I want to just sum that up. You believe a healthy base it meets their basic needs, but for a hungry salesperson wouldn't be enough. So say just over minimum, 50, 60 a year. The base plus you would do 0.5 to 3% of revenue. Now explain that.
Basically, the doctor knows his break even point in the practice. For example, when I was at my old practice, our break even point was like 200,000 a month because our overhead was really high. It started out, then it got to where it was like 500,000 a month. That was a different beast of a practice. What I mean is you would do like a 60K base, and then say you average about 150K a month in collections. Your break even might be something like, you might, just to cover everything, you might have to bring in 75K. Then after that break-even point, you would pay the percentage, anything over that, to protect yourself.
So they would commission on anything over 75,000
on the break-even point. And the way you figure out your break-even is you basically just take your total collections for the year, and you talk to your accountant too, because it has to do with, and you would want to include doctor's payroll in that too. So yeah. The break even is lower, right? Maybe your overhead's really great. Mm-hmm. Maybe the break even's 50%. You just want to protect yourself with that break even point. You want commissions to drive growth, right? It's like, there's a reason that you do that, to protect the business and also drive growth.
Yeah. So final question here. What do you think is the biggest mindset hurdle that doctors have to overcome to be great in the full arch industry, to really achieve their goals, to be consistent, to scale, and to build this implant center either within their GP office or a standalone implant center? What do the doctors have to overcome to get to that place?
First and foremost, I feel like they need to make sure they connect with the right partners. I feel like this niche is so convoluted with people that it's like everyone's a full arch sales coach, even if you've never sold a full arch case in your life. It's like you're a retired implant rep and you have a team that has never done anything in terms of breaking records, but you're going to go charge doctors thousands of dollars to train them. You just have to be really careful, and you have to surround yourself with good people, good marketing companies like the Implant Engine. Spencer always talks about how you guys are incredible with the content that you put out, and your ads are just so much better than the average marketing company. You have to surround yourself with good business partners, good coaching, and invest in your team. You have to be involved too. you can just tell the ones that want to be great because they're willing to put in the work, right? I would say surround yourself with the right coaches, the right marketing companies, and be willing to put in the work. Find great people, pay them well, and understand that you are a people business that happens to do very high quality implant dentistry.
I love it. That was wonderful. Well, Stacy, where can people find you? And in what services and products do you have to offer?
People can find me on my website at www.fullarchsalesexperts.com. And I didn't even talk, I do have an online course. And is it okay if we give the listeners a discount? So, and by the way, Chelsea, I don't know if I told you about this, but my course, I did a case study on my course, and a surgical prosthodontist in Missoula, Montana bought my course last March. He was down 150K year over year, bought my course last March. From April through the end of the year, I swear to God, I did like 2 additional trainings. He was up $982,000. I swear to God, year over year growth. So what I want to do for your listeners is do a 25% discount on the course. The course offers for $4,000, so you'd get it for $1,000 off. Do FAGP 25, Full Arch Growth Podcast 25. So that'll be the discount. They can access it right on my website.
Sounds good. Stacy, this was incredible. Thank you so much for being so forthcoming, so transparent. You're obviously, in my opinion, the best in the business, and I know all of them, most of them. So I can say that without question, that you are the best sales coach in the full arch business. We just really appreciate you bringing your knowledge here. Thank you so much.